key is that be curious. The key is that you really, really need to be curious. And one more thing I'll add in is not only curious, have evidence-based. Don't operate on gut. I have a lot of evidence around you. These days, we have too much of data around. And be logical always, question everything. So if you don't understand anything that I'm saying today, I'll be happy to take the questions. And let's make this session very interactive because it's about curiosity. So I have prepared some presentation for sure, where I'll be taking you through. But at the same time, if you have any questions, it can be any questions for me. No question is a dumb question. Please feel free to interrupt me, talk, and we can really make it a little bit more interactive. All right. So what I've done, everyone, I have put together a small presentation. These are just talking points. So what I'll be taking you through is the need of marketing research, which probably most of us you would know. And I really want to cover consumer or customer journey. Now, this is so key for any marketer that they should understand how we should really start doing the persona mapping, how we should actually go ahead and do customer journey or consumer journey, and what's in for us. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I should share it with a sound. Everyone, please let me know if you can start seeing my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see that.
All right. So today's session is about consumer at heart, and consumer at heart means at every decision-making point. So think about that if you are in any field of marketing, not only media and digital, if you are in innovation, if you are in demand planning, or if you are in any of the field for that matter, even if you are in sales or distribution, what you really, really need to understand is go ahead and see that is it evidence-based decision I'm taking? Is that I'm putting the consumer and customers at heart and doing it, or I'm very judgmental? And I'm going to show some of the examples. So here we have very clearly seen companies. I don't have the exact chart, and I think you all can put together. Companies that are based on real insights and evidence-based make more money. They remain very, very competitive. CPG industry is a big example. Google is a big example that how they really listen to the consumers and customers. They evolve the journey altogether, and now you see where they are. Some of the examples of non-evidence-based, and tell me if some of you would have some work experience and would have heard it. And I think Rajan and I, when we worked back in India, we also felt we used to like really laugh at it, that, you know, how our clients come back and talk to us. So, and these are the actual verbatim that I've heard in my career. The manager might be very daunting to you. You might just start very new and say, oh, I really feel. As soon as somebody goes in that roller coaster, that I really feel, oh, I think my friend said this and that's why we should apply it. And then some of our clients, I remember, even went ahead and said that my mother said this. I was like, they're not even your target audience. And then my manager feels the product is good. And this is the actual verbatim from one of the very senior guys who is nearly a CEO position. So we were really shocked. He's saying, oh, the product is really good that you launched, you know. My friend called me up and he was raving about the design. That's not how you really evaluate the product adoption in a company. Then this is very common in media that somebody said, hey, I don't think this, the way that you have planned is really working because the spot was late in the night and my wife was watching it. Can you please change the media plan? We don't do anything as such because there's a rigorous planning process that has gone in. So if in your career at some point of time you hear it, please differ and please say upfront that based on which evidence are you really saying it. Sorry, is there any question? No, I think some disturbance.
Yeah,
all
go
right.
on.
All right. So now, as I said before, let's talk about consumer or customer persona. and the journey that we are talking about. Can anybody just start writing in chat? I'll just give 1 minute, or maybe if you can just start talking. What do you really understand about consumer persona as such? You can, if I think if we are running too short of time, if you can start writing, what does it actually mean for you? Consumer persona.
The customer pain regarding any product, they want to relieve from there. That is their main goal.
Yeah, profiling customers. Yes, yes. Understanding the pain points. Buyer persona. Yes. Different segments of the target audience. Segmentations. Yes, based on persona. Anybody else? All right. So yes. So persona is basically, think about an individual who is really trying to buy you. And this is your human connection. So the companies have to understand humans, what they are doing, what are the pain points, what are their motivation, what are the profiles. Now, when I say profile, these days it's not only demo profile. Hey, this person is 25 years old, stays in this, and only it's not only just demo profile. What we really do, we also understand psychographic profile. That what are the pain points, what does this person like, what does this person dislike, and how this person is interacting with my category per se or my brand per se. And so it's a very in-depth, it can go very simple and it can go very in-depth depending on the problem that you're really trying to solve. And we have seen across that if we really understand the persona, the consumer and the customer that you're really targeting, it really gives you higher financial value. So think about a product that you're launching, you have not even tested in the market, you went ahead and launched that product. The chances are it will fail because only 5% of the products succeed. So it's a big risk. Solving problems. So let's say you are stuck somewhere. Let's say you are having an e-commerce website and you don't know why there is a dropout rate. And now once you understand the persona, hey, this is how it was and this is how this person is doing, and maybe my digital payment is not proper, or maybe he's looking for someone else, something else has come in. Okay, so it helps you to solve current problems as well. I'm not going to take you through all the piece of marketing you all probably would know. So it can be applied in anything and it will give you a competitive advantage. And if you, the closer you are, the competitive you are. Yeah. So how do we really start the consumer persona and then lead into the consumer journey? So first thing of any consumer journey is that you understand the consumer persona, who. Then you understand what are they really doing. So it starts with historical data. We just don't start like, hey, let's start talking to all the consumers at first go, and then let's understand. There is a lot of historical data that companies are sitting, a lot of secondary data that we have. It is published data. Start collating all the kind of data that you have, qualitative data, quantitative data, and put it on the table. Then you understand, okay, this is my understanding based on this, what we have today. Then you say, okay, fine, but I don't think I'm getting the full story. Now let's talk to the real users. Because if you are a marketeer, and if you have not spoken to the real users and you're sitting in boardroom, that's not how it's supposed to be. I'll give you some of the examples that I had in past when I was handling Procter & Gamble from Ipsos Research. I even traveled with them to a place called Rampur in India, in Barabanki, near Barabanki district in Uttar Pradesh. And these were Japanese clients. These were Indian clients. They were all across the board. And we really wanted to understand how does band 2 or band 3 audience talks and understands about the hair care. And that was when we were thinking about Pantene, that Pantene is a very urban brand. What do we really need to do there? So now you understand that if this level of senior guys are really traveling and trying to understand, because we were sitting in Singapore, we were sitting in different parts, but if there was a market sizing that we saw, first we said, let's first try to understand. We all flew there. we all spent 3 days understanding the consumers there. Yeah, and that this is very, very common. And these days, although the travel might be less, but there are agencies who will present us. They will present us all the interviews as well. So we have a good pulse on the market as well. Then we create the persona. So let's say I've understood it now, and then we'll start creating the persona based on the information. And we can also do a lot of research there that, okay, there are quantitative techniques and qualitative techniques. We can come to that on later. And once you start segmenting, I think somebody wrote in the chat that it's not about like one person will buy, one kind of person will only buy. There'll be always a different kind of persons who will buy it. So understanding what are the broad audience segments, what are the broad personas for my product, and then making a consumer journey. And one of the key thing is that you might find, let's take an example of any e-commerce website. There are so many categories, there's so many subcategories. So you boil down only to one category and say, all right, I want to understand who is buying laundry, who's buying cars, who's buying, let's say, apparels. All right. And then under that also you will find there will be at least 20 to 40 types of people who are coming in. So it can become very complex, and then you start prioritizing, okay, based on my research, I have seen this kind of segment or the personas of people who have a more or less little bit similar kind of behavior. They contribute so much to my sales. So I will invest most of my time in understanding the top 5 personas. And that's where the segmentation comes in. And then once you understand that, and then you understand the what and how part of it, that is the journey mapping. So now let's come to the how to create a consumer persona. So what I've done, I have taken a very small video for everybody to see, because the video sometimes speaks better than the lecturers.
At the most basic level, you should understand the age, gender, and geographical location of your audience, as well as the languages they speak. So we've got A, a 25-year-old male from Texas, B, a 16-year-old female from France, and C, a 32-year-old male from Canada. Already there's quite a lot of variation across this international brand's customers, so we'll need to define the personas a little more. The next step then is understanding why customers are coming to your business and what they expect to find. One of our shoe buyers may have a limited budget and so isn't looking for detailed reviews or information, but just wants to filter the lowest price models. Perhaps another persona type is an aspiring athlete and therefore wants to test out a range of models and benefit from expert recommendations. And our third persona wants a comfortable but stylish shoe for running around with their children, so is interested in the various colours and styles available. Now that you have an idea of who your audiences are and what they want, how do you know where to reach them? Customers are so used to being able to find what they want across platforms and sites that if you're not providing for them, they'll simply go elsewhere. As part of your strategy, you'll need to understand your customers' buying preferences, taking into account if one prefers to shop in store, another favours desktop computers, and if the third is more content to make purchases through their mobile device. Using these insights and developing rich characteristics about each of your personas means you can successfully tailor your strategy and communicate to each potential customer in more relevant ways.
All right. So you would see that they have started classifying the personas, then they started making the segments and the behaviors all together. And this is a social listening platform, actually. This is an example. This is a very, very simple example of a persona, how it looks like. But it depends on your objective, how you really want to do. It seems very similar. So for example, I'm talking about persona, and we have named this lady as Melissa Tan. All right, what is she? So it straight away says that she's a new mom, she's a stressed mom. And then there is an insight that on her busy schedule, she says that I dread going to the supermarket because it's forever crowded, and I always need to get the groceries back home. So think about, this is a very big pain problem that they were really trying to solve, that how we really help new moms, and they're really elusive. They really run short of time. And then they have very clearly said they keep forgetting things because too many things on their to-do list. They're very hard working. They're going, on a treadmill again and again to see the kind of work that they need to do. They're very busy, but also very caring. So if you see in here, what comes out is the busy schedule comes out, caring comes out, hardworking comes out. So the intent is there, but they might not be able to make it. Then they also talk about that what kind of mom she is what level of education she is. So she's a quite educated and aware mom. And then she's also talking about that, okay, this is how it is, her age, her occupation, where does she live. So you would be able to understand, okay, now I'm able to understand a little bit more. You start shaping this person in your thoughts. Okay, now I know. Yeah. And then how does she behave? What her needs are? And some of her motivation points. So motivation and frustrations are very important for us to understand, like what are the barriers? What are the trial points? So even if a lot of us, we just concentrate on, hey, I'm going to make such a cool, easy app, which is like 2 clicks away, that it's going to really help people like Melissa. But what we didn't understand, that what are our motivating points? Do you have a laundry list of things which she really buys again and again? Yeah. So, and what are our barriers? So why will she not use it? So trial and barriers, or motivation and frustrations, both are really important. Yeah. So the frustration is that sometimes it becomes a little too disorganized. She cannot find the product that she's looking in for. And then sometimes when she goes offline shopping, there's a long queue there. Yeah. And there's an inconvenience of carrying the whole thing and then coming back home. So what are the goals that we are looking in for? Reduce stress in her hectic life, spend quality time with the family. Although she might not say, I want to spend time, but if you are a good researcher, you will be able to derive that as a mom, she also needs to have a good time by herself and with the family, and ensure that her home is always stocked up on the necessities. So this is her core one. You can go ahead and talk more about herself or the needs of the mom and the child as well. But this is a super basic persona. The reason I'm putting this, because it looks like very simple, but it is very well researched. It's based on the research. It is based on qualitative and quantitative research. So there are many people like her. So she's a representative persona, yeah, who contributes the maximum to the sales. Yeah. Now,
so
how do we?
Shubhra, I would like to add something, if you don't mind. I mean,
yeah.
If you can go back to the slide, the persona. So I would assume that if you're talking about a specific persona, or let's say you're talking about a specific brand, which has a certain target audience, to which we are dissecting into different personas. So we can have as many personas, right? And figure out what is the size of that persona or the specific audience we're looking at. And hence
the segmentation.
We do the segmentation, and hence we figure out how do we reach out to those people through various forms of media communication and stuff like that, right? Thank you.
Yeah, correct. All right. Sometimes it also happens that we don't even know our target audience so well. We tend to define, and I think very old school way, when I started my career, we would say, hey, you know what? And I think my first brand was Fruity, and I was just out of college then. And we clearly defined it. Oh, Fruity has 2 kinds of audience, the kid who is between 8 to 14 years old, and the mom who will buy it. Now think about, really, there's so many other kinds of people also drinking Fruity. So we clearly didn't get it so well. But yes, the distribution was good. The product was good. And we wanted to make it very spiky in terms of communication. So that jingle and look and feel really helped. But if I'm really now thinking about personalized message to the different audiences, I will definitely go ahead and do different kind of personas and audiences. So if, let's say, mother contributes so much, If the kid has some money these days, they contribute so much. How about the people on the go? How much do they contribute? Because they are non-mom and non-kid. Yeah. So a good way to do this is also understand source of volume, where your business is likely to come from. And if you're in a new category, you really, really need to understand it much more. So how do we really go ahead and create consumer persona? In my research career, many ways we have done. Sometimes we have a lot of money, so we go ahead and do a lot of quantitative methods as well. And then we also, in places where we didn't have any, wanted to do a little bit more of the diagnostic part, we did qualitative research. So simple things like surveys are good, which are a little bit old school, but still helps. But now what is trending in is a real life data and behavior. So what happens in survey that if I give you a survey, you will write it and it is a reported way. But what I don't know, active versus passive behavior. So your active behavior, it might be possible. I really want to understand what's the Google trend these days in this segment. So how are the consumer actually behaving? So it's all published data. There's from big data to the simple data to the trends to social listening. And it's really, really quite empowering and insightful. In our research, we use a lot of social listening data to understand about the persona as well. Online research, exactly what I said, it's very, very common. And now with the COVID hitting in, there are a lot of calls that we were first having face-to-face. We have something like this on Zoom. There are agile tools as well that we are using. They're even using WhatsApp for focus groups and discussions. Now, in categories where you really need to interview experts, so let's say you're in pharmaceutical industry or in any of the big other, B2B kind, you can still take one-to-one interviews also. They're quite in-depth. It will help you to understand more. And the people who take these interviews are also very well qualified. They'll dig up all the work and they'll understand, okay, now these are the things and these are the ones that they're thinking about. Then focus groups are definitely there. Now there's a big list. I can go ahead with the list and tools, but these are the broadly things that we are looking at. And then we also conduct workshops sometimes, because sometimes people don't know what they actually are sitting at. And then we will say, okay, now this is the data set that we have. And then we start putting them into the segments and then understand, okay, this is how it is. What we really don't want to do is get into a very narrower persona, which is not representative. Yeah? So always question that if I am really looking at a representative persona or personas, actually now there'll be no one persona for one product these days. All right. Then coming to the consumer journey. Now you have done, let's say 4 or 5 persona, you have validated it. Yes, it's fine. Now you understand the how part of it. What is the journey looking like? Now, anybody can talk about or say what is a consumer or customer journey? Once you have a persona, how do you understand the journey part of it? Anyone? Let me see the chat. You can write in chat also. So let's take the example of Melissa Tan. Yeah. What would her journey look like? Anyone? Anyone can take a wild guess also is fine. Classification, okay. Stress.
Like how customer goes through a shopping experience or purchase experience through different touch points, and what are his frustrations and pain points. That is also
experience.
The
Yes.
recognition of need, then you have to information search, then you have to searching the alternative way where you'll get, then you will take the purchase decision whether you'll buy or not with the money. After the buying, you have to validate whether the product is efficient as per your how much you will spend on that. That way.
Yes. Yes. So the thing is that consumer persona is something very broad, but customer or consumer journey is where you will start interacting with your category and product. the experience part of it. Yeah. So definitely you don't want to do, let's say, if we are not a diaper company, I shouldn't do, like if I'm a diaper company, I should not, work on anybody who is my non-target audience. So the consumer and customer journey has to have a very clear interaction and understand how this whole process is happening related to my category and brand. Yeah, and I'm going to give some examples, and these are also experiences as well. So now, old school way, and if you see this old school way of a customer and consumer journey, please say it upfront and say, sir, this is not a good one. This is not how we all make decisions. It's not the old schooler say, oh, first I will drive awareness, then I will drive engagement, then I will drive trial, then after trial, I will drive loyalty. This is how we were taught in the RB schools. And we implemented even in, I think, in several countries. So, but now I think about it, it's not that's how the decision is going to happen. It's very, very complex. There's so many decisions going on. So let's say you want to buy a product. First, you will go and research about it so much. You will look at Google ratings. You will probably and then you'll think about it. And then you realize one day, okay, then I'll do something else. So there'll be a whole lot of rational and irrational decisions that you will take. So then in this situation, then it becomes very difficult that how do I really go ahead? What is my path that I really should go ahead and really plan myself in? Yeah. So the old school model, please even don't think about that kind of funnel or tunnel approach. It doesn't happen. It's across. And then now I think we had enough of reports on COVID-19 that how it has changed the behavior. Consumer and customer journey also keeps changing. Now, maybe I'll tell you my example. When I was in US and I was like early Netflix, my God, I'm so old, an early Netflix user. So what we used to do, we used to go on a website, and then there were small videos on that website, and we would say, all right, this looks like good recommendation, I will order it. And then the VCD would come in my mailbox. Yeah, the VCD would come in my mailbox, and then we would watch it online on our laptops or whatever the digital things were, and then put it back in the mailbox, and then it will go back. So this was a subscription base. So think about, they were sending like a magazine in our things. And then that's the time I started understanding more because I quite like the ratings part of it. They started making the user ratings. Now what happened? The journey has changed and evolved, and they keep evolving. So as soon as the internet or the streaming part went up, they really repurposed the business. They saw what is working. They saw the personalization part, and they really took it up, and still they are ever evolving. Same thing has happened with COVID. I think most of the categories are disrupted. Our consumer journey has been revisited. All of us, so many new people have come in into the digital category as well. Our pathways have changed, and the new normal is going to be very, very different. So don't think that once you have done consumer persona or journey 5 to 10 years back, or maybe even 2 years back, it's going to be applicable. Question it and maybe modify and adapt what are the things that are going in. So as I told, that if you make a decision, it's like a complex way. And this is my challenge every day when I think about omni-channel approach or 360 personalization, that the number of touch points a person undergoes. They have seen it somewhere. Let's say they've watched the ad, they have downloaded an app, they also read it somewhere in the blog. Then they have watched some of the tutorials somewhere, and it's across. And then when they are doing, and when they're coming on and they have checked so many, let's say, things on the e-commerce website, then they have dropped out, and again they have come back. So this is a very complex journey. So how do we really start understanding that what is the new normal, and how today in the current scenario, consumer is really interacting with my brand. What are the key things? Because the chances are you will not be able to go ahead and take care of each and everything. But primarily, if you take care of 4 or 5 only, that research has proven, you will get a good ROI on your communication and the pathway analysis. So what I've done, I'm going to show you a very simple video in here and have a look. It's a very simple on the retail store. They have really simplified it. So I thought it's a good example to show as well.
No matter how great our product or service is and how effective our advertising and marketing have been, we won't be able to make our customers happy if we don't understand what they experience when they come into contact with our organization. Happy customers will come back to us, rave about us to all their family and friends, and stay with us for a long time. In short, happy customers lead to happy profits. So, how do we make our customers happy? Research shows that emotions are powerful drivers of customer decisions and behaviors. Negative emotional experiences stand out more in a customer's memory, especially if a customer is frustrated or angry. The first step in making our customers happy is to understand their emotional experience, their feelings, questions, and motivations as they come into contact with our organization. To do this, we have to step into their shoes and experience our organization through their eyes. We do this through customer journey mapping. Customer journey mapping follows the journey that the customers have with our organization and describes all the experiences they have, both functional and emotional, as well as the emotional responses those experiences provoke. It is essentially a strategic tool to ensure every interaction at every touch point a customer has with us is as positive as it can be. Touch points are any point of contact between the customer and our organization. As an organization, the information we obtain from customer journey mapping will help us gain an overall business view of the experience delivered by all customer-facing functions, identify the gaps between the desired customer experience and the one actually received at each touch point, identify critical opportunities for moments of truth that create a good or bad impression on the customer. A positive moment of truth would be a planned surprise that delights the customer. Focus on areas of importance, what we can do more of, and areas not valued by customers, so costs can be optimized. Determine key requirements such as skills, systems, and procedures, and develop and improve cross-function alignment across the organization. It is through a customer journey mapping exercise that we can understand the customer's emotions better and guide us on what should be the main focus in delighting our customers and winning their loyalty. Find out how customer journey mapping can help create a differentiated customer experience by getting in touch with TMI Malaysia.
All right. So, did everybody get what it is? Any questions so far?
I have one question that
Yes.
you cannot make everybody happy, but there is a feedback used to take the happy customer. So somehow, somewhere the customers, that depend upon the behavior, they they're not happy. So whether you are taking care of that type of customer or you focus the majority.
Okay, so overall, don't make anybody unhappy. It's not good. So let's say, okay, I think I'll just try to resolve this. So let's say a large chunk of people, if they are happy, one, it is okay. But if you are really leaving a set of consumers and you assume that you will not be able to make them happy, it will be like a leaky bucket, what we call. The attrition rate will really, really take high. So think about what are the key pain points that you can do and at least have a plan to address it. And these days, even if you cannot address it, say it upfront and try and get into the human to human connection. So for example, I was talking about a software and I was saying, oh, you don't have this feature, how is it? And then they said very clearly, first, we are trying to resolve the key questions that are coming in. However, if we see people like you coming in more and we have more queries like this, then we would like to make change and put that feature in my software, which I was quite happy with because, yes, I'm unique, yes, but every company cannot make all the changes. But the way they dealt with it was very, very professionally. Hey, this is what it is. This is what we will do, versus not even thinking and talking to me. Okay. So think about that. And that's where the personalization and tech support comes into picture. How come Google can answer most of our queries and see how they have really built the algorithm over the period of time? Yeah. And these are basic algorithm on searches that all of us, and we're talking about hyper personalization these days. It's not even like, when we think about, oh, this is segmentation based marketing. Oh yeah, now it is now going to be experiential based marketing and hyper personalization because we have a lot of support from data and tech. So how you really solve the business problem, that will be really, really crucial. So try not to leave a particular segment and try not address it at all. Address in a way that still they would come back to you. And people who complain most are the one who would be the more loyalist to you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and also in this example, I think I'm not so sure if how many of you saw that it's not only related to the media and advertising question, it is cross-functional as a team, how you're really planning to resolve it. Yeah. So it is about, let's say, which structure you want to put, which kind of problems that you're really trying to resolve. What are the other, let's say, pain points you're really trying to resolve? So let's say if I am coming in the store and if I am not able to find something, how does that help? It's not related to advertising. It's very simple related to your customer service that, how do I really find out that person? And not think about that as online behavior. If your UX is not good, you will not be able to find things. And these days, when you think, if you and both of us will sit on the same website, the chances are we will not find the same page, because the page that has been shown it to you and shown it to me are quite different based on our preferences. Yeah. So this is where we talk about how websites are personalizing. The web analytics will come into picture. They even know who's returning customers and why the person dropped out. So let's say if I go to Flipkart, I think, let's say Flipkart for some period of time, and I'm checking out something and I'm coming back and I'm not even doing this. And then they understand this kind of consumers or cohort are many, and they also figure out, okay, fine, next time if this customer comes in, I will try to give a different offer. And they give me a promotional offer. They gave me a bundle offer. Yeah, then I might actually click it and go ahead, because whatever they showed me earlier on, I was sort of not going in and buying it. So personalization is key today. And it is not only, personalization becomes a big factor in digital per se as well, but nothing is stopping you if you're brick and mortar as well to go ahead and implement it. Any questions so far?
Shubhra, there is a question from Dr. Krishna Kumar. He is a very senior faculty member. He is a professor of marketing and HR.
Yeah.
He asks, can we classify happy customer into customer satisfaction, customer delight? Otherwise, happy word is very open-ended.
Yeah.
Your
yeah.
views.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's talk about customer and consumer. So it will help us. Customers are generally B2B, and or if you have a online stores, consumers are the one who are primarily consuming, like a shampoo consumers and so on. So there is a way. So let's say from the consumer perspective, there's a loyalty factor that we measure. If somebody is buying you again and again, you understand that as well. From a customer perspective, it is your NPS scores, which is Net Promoter Score as well. It's a basic satisfaction survey, even if you don't understand it. Satisfaction survey that goes in, and we monitor that as a KPI as well. So what is your matrix that matters for your customers is very, very important. And this is matrix that all of us are really following it. Like, for example, in our case, it's like the loyalty, of course, it doesn't happen so much. Everybody consumes in repertoire. Then how do I really go ahead and see that? But if I see at least that loyalty base, even if it is small, retains, it's fine. And even if my business is okay, it's fine. We also have social listening where people are complaining and we go ahead and really address them as well. So every company in their corporate affairs have this division that they can go ahead and do it so that at least you understand the grievances part. But always keep an ear to what consumers are saying. One of the key thing I think most of us are, if you don't have anything, just look at Google ratings. You will know how well your product is getting 5 out of 5 rating or 4 out of 5 ratings, and you will see it at a go. All right. Can you remind you of things in a UA cart? Sorry, what is UA cart?
The cart we used to add and later you forgot and they remind you, okay, go and buy, you have this cart. So like the online they remind you, okay, this is you forget to buy. So then you remind and you go and buy. Sometimes
there is a whole strategy around dropout customers and whole strategy. So if you're in an e-commerce business, and I think about there's so many strategies why the person dropped out. And it's not that they forgot. Some, of course, they might forget, but if you are really high need customers, you will go ahead and buy it, but then you might just change your mind. Then there are delivery options, there are payment options, and then you are still not very sure. You really want more consonants as well. That's why if you think about it, as soon as you check out, in most of the pages, if they're really optimized, they will give you a consonance factor, which would say it upfront. Hey, testimonial. So many people have said like this for us. So while you're buying, you're liking it. Hey, I think I'm buying a good product. This is how it is. Some people even reiterate the benefit that now my hair will become like this. I'll be so good, and whatever that benefits are. Then they also give you options for digital payments. And one of our key learnings in India e-commerce was because the way everybody buys in installments is quite high. So let's say anything which is about 3,000 to 4,000 rupees, it goes in the installment part of it. And they buy really expensive items, and all of them are in installments. So if you don't have that installment options in your digital payment, people will drop out. Yeah. So many things as such are there. So you will see a lot of sites are very heavily optimized on the dropout and the cart part. So let me read Swaroop's comment. Prefer quality versus quantity. Yes. Offers how their business entity tackles and create motivation. Yes. So the quality conscious customers, all of us are quality conscious customers. Not everybody is just, I'll buy anything and I'm okay with the bad quality. No one is okay with bad quality today. All of us in any part of the world, you have to deliver a threshold level of quality for sure. And what is your value equation then? Of this money, I'm getting this. Yeah. So it really depends that, which product you're looking in for. Like even if you're looking for a $2 product today in one of the classified website, your value equation is pretty much set in your mind. Yeah, that I'll use it one time, or maybe I'll use it 2 times, and that should be okay. So it really depends how you really try to resolve. So those will be the one after this. So if you know the problems are happening, this is a consumer and customer journey, then you start putting the business question and consumers again together. Of course, you shouldn't start consumer journey and persona without the business questions per se. But then when you start together, say, okay, now what are the problems? Oh, so many people are coming on my website, but I have a very high bounce rate. Of course, means the landing page is not proper. Or people are, they spend more time on my website, but they're dropping out in this part. That's why the chat system comes in. So they want to talk to someone. So all those things phenomena will start coming in. And now we're also talking about shoppertainment now. That it's like something is so irrational. I think most of us who are exposed to China, who are exposed to the northeast part of Asia, will understand live streaming and shoppertainment is really big. So it's not like an old school, I will sit there and okay, I will shop. Yes, of course you will shop for sure. But some people, it's like your retail therapy, they will do online. And there will be a person who will be, putting on things, the influencer is, let's say, showing different kind of apparels, whatever the person is using, or some gadgets. And people are really watching, and it's a live streaming, and then they're buying it. So think about that kind of consumer journey where your e-commerce and entertainment both have mixed together. Yeah.
I have a question that pound world, if you go UK, there is a £1. People most of go this pound world to buy the product. So one pound, you have to get it, toys, all that. So the child, that time the quality does not matter because the child will break that toys. But they target that scenario, how the quality.
Okay, so I think all of us have dollar stores, dollar, pound stores, and I think 100 rupee stores also I've seen in Bombay. So I think the quality is still set, because if I go to a dollar store, I know what I will get. It's basically a simple thing where I can really use it one time. It's okay for me. And that quality is acceptable to me. Yeah. And if I get 2 or 3 times more, it's okay. Yeah. So there's still quality. What you really don't want, even in the dollar store, that you go in the dollar store and you'll find out it doesn't work at all. That'll be frustrating. Yeah. So even if it works one time, that's the quality perceptions that they have. But even that perception today, Japanese and Korean companies are really breaking away. And when I was in US, the same dollar stores were pretty much in demand. So, and we saw a good uplift in the sales coming from those stores as well. And they would have all this, those kind of items that you never require in your life, that, you have to use this kind of grocery items or this kind of hack kind of items. There's so many nitty-gritty kind of items that you feel like, oh, wow, this is like, I like it. And they're very innovative as such. But what Daiso did here in, I can tell you with my experience here, is that it was Japanese products. Whatever you had seen this in little bit expensive stores, you will still find a okay quality. It doesn't, let's say, I can buy tiffin boxes today, I can buy gardening tools today in $2 or $3. And it has a design element as well. So what I'm getting as a value add is a quality assurance that it will work for some more time. And it does work, which I have seen it. And it has a design element and a flaunting factor. So all the kind of beautiful stationery, which are so design oriented, I can get in $1 or $2. So the quality is a perception. Until you're okay with that quality, it should be okay. Yeah. Very nice. So I'm also cognizant of the time. So what I'll do, I'm not going to go through that this whole list. Anybody can look at later on. That how do we really start building the consumer journey mapping? So the buyer is also important. And this is more related to the buyer one. You can do in many ways. We also do consumer journey in, let's say, many other initiatives as well. So if there's some purpose initiatives, we still do it. So the touch point orchestration is big. Then it's beyond the touch point orchestration. You also see that what are the action themes that are coming in, challenges, emotive stage that we saw early on, the barriers and trials with each stage, what is it coming in, and list all the emotions and the functional and emotional part both together, and then say, okay, fine, now these are the things I really need to improve. And that's where you start mapping the business questions to this in a much more detailed manner. Okay. Sorry. And some of the key considerations. And this, I really want everybody to think properly. I'm going to just pose some of the questions. Think about that you are an e-commerce website and you have to do persona mapping first. What are the kind of persona, yeah, will come? So think about you. I think all of you are young guys, Gen Z, so heavily on internet, can buy everything online. What type of persona or typology would be coming across? You can write together that, different type of segment of the consumers that would be there. And if you are in this company, what are the things that let me start my question again. So if you are in an e-commerce website and doing the persona mapping, what are the things that you will consider, and what are the possible options that you will get through? It's a very open question. You can just talk also, is also fine.
First thing, we get discount more. If you get more discount, we will buy. And the coupons, that online coupons, how can add and get the better coupons? They give lots of coupon, but you have to use one coupon. So you have to choose the best coupon if you go the e-commerce. So then that also there. And the options, choosing option, they give the color combinations. This color, try this color, that color combinations also there. Option is there.
Personalization, promo seekers. Okay, so this is what I'm just trying to put it in the theme. Promo seekers, people who are okay, we all are promo seekers, by the way, in every point of time. But then in some places we don't make promotional offer, like if there's some medicines and all. It's not like I'll take a medicine which is give me cheaper and cure my headache. So yes, so promo seekers are there. You can get the presentation. I've sent it to Rajan. So promo seekers are there, and you mentioned something else also, personalization of colors, that they will give you options. It's like, I think as a woman, you'll understand when you go to a sari shop, they say, oh, madam, this is also there, this is also there, this is also there. This is exactly what happens online.
Yeah, actually, sometimes the people get frustrated. They saw 10 times one customer, they're not buying. The next customer will come and they're not ready somehow. That time, that person is want to buy, but this ready person, the salesman is not interested. That is not option we can avoid in the e-commerce. That you choose your option, how much you have to buy. That also.
Yeah. Limited stock, flash sales. Yes. Okay, what else? You have to tell me more about
selection. Sorry, madam, assuming the fact that I'm in business for a year, maybe, I will heavily depend upon the analytics part of it. Now, I want to demographically find out where are my visitors coming from, what age, at what location, and what products are really getting focused. That's how I'm going to channelize my UI designing, as well as, all the flash sales or whatever we are talking about will be mapped according to that. So that is the first thing that I'm going to do.
Very nice. Very nice. So look at analytics for sure, because everything has to be evidence-based.
Right.
Yeah. Very nice. Limited stock, flash sales. All right. So I'll tell you, this is a very real example. In the corporate world, a research agency was given a task to do the persona mapping. They went ahead and said, okay, fine, we'll start doing persona mapping for this e-commerce website. And there's so many e-commerce websites around. What they started doing, let me start. They started actually looking at exactly what you said, the analytics of the current consumers, browsers, who are currently browsing, what is the subscription patterns, who are promo hunters, who are really impulse buyers, who are really at the low hanging fruit that I really want to buy now, like a grocery item. And then, sometimes we go to a big supermarket and mall, we want to buy something, but we come back with 3 more. So all these things they started saying and started analyzing it, but the brand team wasn't happy. Guess the reason that they weren't happy? What happened? They had really done a fantastic analysis on their platform.
Actually, sometimes once you see this product, you order, but when you reach the home, whatever the clarity they give, but the quality is different. Well, your expectation is different, and once you reach the dress material, so you don't like it, you don't feel it. Even if it's a digital world, you whatever the quality they give, sometimes they are failed to provide that quality. What is the customer mind? It is there.
My question is that after that research agency presented such a wonderful persona mapping for this e-commerce website, the client team wasn't happy. Why do you think that they weren't happy after they had done a rigorous persona mapping?
Multiple reasons they may be there, madam, but one of them may be, quality. Second thing is what is displayed on the commerce site and what the product actually I'm getting. There is a vast difference between the two. These are the two reasons maybe that's coming to my mind.
The same product is available to commerce side. One is less price and another that also lose customers sometimes.
The third thing also maybe there, the logistics part of it, the delivery part of it, the timelines associated with, from the time I order and I get it delivered. That's also would count. That would also count. So,
okay. Okay, so I'll just come back on this one, because the research agency did not look at the proper brief. The business question was, I really want to get more people from non-traditional channels to online channels. And this team went ahead and did online personas, forgot offline personas. So there are a lot of old people who are still not there in the categories. So they really wanted to expand the category. And if you really wanted to expand the category, you didn't even look at non-buyers. You didn't even look at the competition. You didn't even look at the traditional buyers. And they went and presented such a cool presentation about everything was online. So, and that presentation was bombed. Why? Because they didn't go ahead and think about the briefing part of it. So it's very important that once you actually get the, just start on persona part and start on the solution part. Give proper time to think back, what are the business objectives, go through again and again, talk to people, understand what you're really trying to solve. And this has happened many times in research, and I can go on. Once we went to Australia, we realized, oh, the team is doing very well in tracking. Everybody was very happy. Oh, your user base have increased. This has increased, that has increased. And you're like, all very nice. And apparently it turned out that the client was not interested in that geography where they were doing well. They were interested in the other geography where they were not doing well. And we presented something else. All right. So this is my last slide, and I'm going to not go through this. So please avoid some of the consumer journey pitfalls. Don't do anything on assumptions or on just your personal behavior. Yeah. So I think many of us are told that, hey, I think quality I didn't get, you didn't get, maybe you didn't get, but I don't know whether it is reflective of consumers at broad or not. You can start with a hypothesis, but it will be really narrow and it will not be considered as a good business decision. Not involving customers you're just sitting and doing in one room. That should not be the case. Don't use a single generic buyer persona. Investigate, and listen. You just think that, consumer journey is all about media planning and touchpoint orchestration. It isn't. It's about solving a business problem, and think about the goal that you're looking for. And then you structure that, hey, this is my company process, and you just force fit the solution in the consumer journey. Insight is all about objectively finding out what it is going on. Huh? It's like journalism. You don't give a ready-made solution early on. First you find, and then you map. You don't involve all the stakeholders. You went and spoke to only the salesperson, not to the marketing or the other guys as well. Well, you have to find a holistic thing, and treating that, oh, this is like my end. I've got this, the solution all. This is not the solution. This is just the means for you to find the solution. That's not the solution. Solution is another chapter altogether. Yeah. So this is all I had for today. Any questions so far? I think I'm running out of time already now. Stop sharing. So this is what I had for today. Any questions so far?
Just one question, ma'am, just from your experience. You mentioned that you had been working on the Pantene research. Now, taking that as an example, how much if I'm looking at the balance sheet, if I'm looking at the marketing budgets, how much is it really the ratio
Non-working
from the total
ratio.
one? And or maybe, you know, what is the timeline, or, you know, to cross the BEP, the break-even point? Maybe taking Pantene as an example, or any other product in your career. Just want to have a timeline, just an analysis, or just an outline of how things look like, particularly
Okay,
in the B2C category.
Okay, so I think the way, I'll tell you simple in PNL, how these things are classified. These are called non-working cost. In non-working cost, you have agency fee, market research cost coming in, and the whole commercial budget, let's say it's $100. The research can go in good companies as much as $5, which is really big.
Okay.
Yeah. In some companies, it doesn't even exist, which is really sad, and those companies don't do well. So that is one part. So it really depends. Some people are like, they invest on an ongoing basis upfront. And then some companies that is already built in, there's no separate budget, but there is always a way, what we call ongoing optimization is a part and parcel of the culture. So test and learn approach is always there. So in that test and learn approach, you know, there's no particular budget per se, but it's a part and parcel of the culture. So you don't have to, and they take the insights on the go. So it's not like one time I do some research. So that's how it is. But it goes from basic innovation trends end to end. Let's say from start of the project, there are gates. This I'm talking about CPG big companies, there are gates. When we talk about innovation, that you have to concept gate, copy, which is advertising gate, then there are trackers, and it feeds back. So that gates keeps going on based on the initiative or the tier initiative that you have. So it's a dedicated process in most of the companies.
Got you, ma'am. I quite often see HUF, P&G, they spend heavy budgets, you know, on, I feel like, so that's why the question came to my mind.
They do. And they have a, okay, so I think these are the companies that we work for, and they do spend. I was also a CMI as well in Unilever. I was CMI for content. So can you imagine that my job was just about content insights per se. It's not related to any other thing. And later when I went into Global Lux, which was more broad, which was India, and I was handling India and Brazil primarily, not so much of China, which was across the concept product test for the product, the ads, and also understanding holistically about the brand. So any insight person that you would see from this company, so they're like your advisors, which will tell you why this is doing well, why this is not doing well, what are the opportunity size for us. And we answer the questions from the marketeers, what they're really asking us.
Got you,
okay. But it's a very fantastic field as well. Even if you don't go in insight, then the insight mindset is very, very important in any marketer. And that's what we call data-driven marketeers. And if you're not data-driven marketer and you're just saying, this is why I feel, don't do this. You have to really quote and then do. So I think one key thing that if I'm really telling you all is just be data-driven and insight-based marketer in whichever field you go. Okay. That's all from my side, and I think my time is up now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Maybe with your permission, we'll see if one final question, if you have patiently been hearing us So, it's been one of the most interactive sessions, I think, all questions being answered. As a moderator, sometimes it's so difficult for us. We pick and choose, and then we feel so bad that we missed out some questions. But today is one of those rarest days that all questions have been answered, I think. Thank you so much on that front. Is there any other question? If one last question, if somebody wants to ask anything.
Yeah, actually, my question is that sometimes traditional way of the people, the generation who are not using the net and Google, Facebook, so they prefer some shop. So when e-commerce business decided one shop, that is for one place, because the shop handling is not that possible in the COVID scenario. That time the e-commerce sometimes stop and they lose the customer because of the COVID scenario. They think they cannot forecasting that scenario, how the marketing plan change. We never know what will happen. Now COVID, next time what will come. So that
agile marketing, you have to be agile marketeers. So last 2 years have been bumpy ride for most of the companies. So your forecasting, where you forecast, and the way you forecast the scenario planning has to be different. So I can tell you with my experience, and when we started forecasting, we were like, how this whole thing is going to pan out, because supply chain is also affected. So many things are really, really affected. So we started doing scenario planning. And then once the scenario planning options are done, then we say, okay, in this scenario, let's say the COVID situation is partially open. And this is how the consumer behavior is. And then we start planning that. Full open, what will happen? Full lockdown, what will happen? And it is cross-functional. It's not only one team deciding it. And that was quite intensive. And that's where the cross-cultural teams came together. And this is, I think, tech companies were always at a higher end because they were always on the measurement plan versus trying to do marketing plan only once. So if you see Google and Facebook, their marketing is always on, always measurement oriented. When I say measurement plan, is think about an Excel sheet, what happens as a KPI, and they track that KPI and they optimize that KPI. And it keeps going on and on. As a CPG marketer, we were not very good at agile marketing, that how do we start changing it faster, at which pace should we change it, because it's not that every day we will change it, because we have to take a decision. We start with this strategy, we monitor for some time, and then we do it. So agile is about doing it a periodic period of time based on the scenarios that you have predicted. So now all of us have decided that, okay, now we know. So like in media and digital, we also have issued guidelines where we say, okay, in the places, let's say whole APAC, what happens that if one country is really under lockdown, one is partial lockdown and some regions are. So we have specific guidelines for those kind of ways in media to be implemented for us. And these are the levers that you really need to move. So agile planning is here to stay. And everybody has to be agile and keep data as an arsenal, cross collaboration as an arsenal for you to take decisions quickly and faster.
Thank you.
But one question. That if you take the decision, you cannot do your technical team to do the coding as fast as, because that is going on their development agile. So marketing, you got the information you want to implement, but some constant
have dynamic website, no coding based.
Okay.
You don't go for this, and this is frankly so old school of, I think Rajan and I belong to that stage, not you guys, where we sat with the website guy with the wireframe. I think most of you would be engineer. I wasn't, I'm an art student. And then I had to really, this is like website wireframe. And then this is how it is. And then we spent so much of time. Now these days, everything is plug and play. And if your websites and your digital properties are not on dynamic, or what we call 2.0, now they're calling 3.0 as well, there's no plug and play, don't even think about it. You cannot change it. No coding and all. And even maybe I don't know much, but even if you think about machine learning and those things, how that kind of things are really making it a little bit more dynamic. I think Mr. Google is there. Everybody knows how they really work, and they're so dynamic. And start from Netflix, my old example, taking the CD and putting it, how they really optimize the personalization part. And how Facebook, do you know how many times Facebook has really changed their UX part, none of us know. Now they're all metaverse now. So, they will keep evolving, and they do evolve very fast. And when you see in the Facebook, when we really talk to them, you really feel that journey mapping is so beautiful. They do that. And some of the things are always on. So that's why I'm saying tech companies have really mastered the art of agile planning and measurement plan. And now this is like, we are also talking about, customer lifecycle value in CPG. So we are also learning that from them as well. So no coding kind of. So if you get into this, you have to make everything dynamic.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. So while we are slowly heading towards conclusion, thank you so much for your key insights from evidence-based against gut-based, customer persona to customer
Manikantan,
journey.
I have one question for ma'am. Super. No, I just see that you were there in the ASEAN market and you were talking about the JPAC market. I just have one question, because this is something which we can observe. And do you feel that today we don't hear Sony, we all hear is Google, we all hear is everything from the West. Do you think this particular market is lacking? What we are talking about today is data driven. What we are talking about, Google. We open Google Analytics, I have everything about my website, be it any website. So do you think this market is completely lacking that? Is that the reason why they're left behind? What's your thoughts, ma'am?
So I don't think Google is lacking behind, because I'm more influenced by
not
China.
Google. I'm saying the Korean market, the Japanese market. I'm saying they
Korea and Japan. Okay.
So yesterday we used to hear Sony, right? Today we don't hear them at all. It's all the companies we hear from the US. So the market which was held by them, it's taken over by the West. So do you think they're lacking the data-driven part of it?
No, they aren't. So in CPG company Kobe, P&G, J&J have their R&D headquarters set in Japan. So I can tell you from my category experience, because I belong to more beauty care. And so their all R&D headquarters are based there, because all the new products from 7 kind of skin regimen, all the rinse off, leave-on treatments and the sprays and the mists of the world are coming from Japan. Korea has, because I don't know so much about cars and those and telecom kind of field, but definitely there are a lot of things there which I really feel are happening. Another part is they're definitely data driven. So much data driven. They're exporting Korean dramas. I don't know how many of you have seen. We all are addicted to that Korean drama. Korean drama is based on very clear consumer insights. The Korean wave in APAC, I don't know about India so much, but the Korean wave is so much there in terms of its skincare, in terms of food, in terms of fashion, in terms of entertainment is super high. So they are really, they have upped their game. And the wave is across, even in the premium products as well. So, and the reason that they are really monetizing it is they are really listening to the consumers in Korea and across. It's massive. In Indonesia and Philippines, when I go, or in Thailand, when I go, I feel like I have become half Korean, because the way I talk about the food, the way I have friends, the way I can go to the Korean stores, and the way I can draw analogy between the cooking and the cookwares, it's massive. So I think all of us are, and then another giant is China, that where the whole digital front is coming in. So, and India, of course, big time. So India e-commerce, the working population is very high. So all those things are now evolving to a new norm. And this is very exciting from most of the sense that we all have become a part of global citizen. Yeah? So, and you can experience it anywhere the way you really want to do. So for me, one market, I think every market has potential and opportunities. Traditionally, yes, Sony and those kind of companies have not evolved, and that is across in most of the part of the world.
Got you, ma'am. Thank you. Just wanted to have your perception.
No, Korea, I'm very close as well. I think all the women will know who watches the Korean drama and the Korean fashion and skincare. From simple skin to the translucent skin, we all want it. So it's a fantastic wave as well. So yeah, as a consumer, I'm talking about, but it has a high monetary value as well. The new businesses have really sprung up.
Sure, got you. Thank you. Thanks, ma'am.
Okay, all
Shubhra,
right. Yeah.
Shubhra, thank you so much. It really means a lot. I sort of asked you to, have a session with my students, and you didn't even budge. You immediately said
Rajan,
yes.
you're a good friend of mine. Rajan and I did an internship together. We had fun time.
It really means a lot. And yeah, I think we will stop taking any more questions because we don't want to hold you on for long. Manikandan, please, over to you. Thank you, Shubhra. Thank you so much. Means a lot from all of us.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and have a nice weekend.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
ma'am. While we're almost at the conclusion, thank you for all the stories from Rampur to Fruity. We call ourselves the Curiosity Club. Our slogan, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's stay hungry, stay curious. So while the cupcake analogy videos got us a bit hungry, the session has only got us more curious. I think thank you for your, and also thank you so much for your patient hearing of all the questions, I think, and you're enriching us with your insights. Thank you so much. Before I conclude, thank you all for attending today's session. It's indeed been a pleasure hosting you all and hearing some incredible insights from Ms. Shubhra. On behalf of Dayananda Sagar University, the Dean, the club committee and members, our faculty and our students, we would like to thank you for sparing your valuable experiences with us. Thank you. Our next session will be on 24th of November with another incredible topic and an amazing speaker. Stay tuned for more information from us, and take care and stay safe.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
That
Bye.
was great insights.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.